Can I just say welcome to this, I'm not going to call it a webinar, it's a discussion this afternoon. We are recording and it will be available later. Welcome to CJ Learning, Smart Curriculum Academy. That's what we badge this as. The topic this afternoon is, as you all know, territory mapping for educators. The broadest group of educators from across the globe, as far as I can tell this afternoon. But our goal is to really look at what Anthony's brought to us in terms of territory mapping and where this is useful, not only for those that we're educating, but to the educators themselves. And I think that will unravel as we go through this afternoon. So welcome to you. Thanks for being here. Anthony, do you just want to pick up and take us into this afternoon?
Well, I will do, yes. And it's a lot of people in this room that have inspired me over the last 30 years and listened to me endlessly about what is possible, really, when I sort of first set up I Will Not Complain, to unlock trust and willpower. And then it was really inspired by what I learned from my time with Indigenous communities about maybe we need a map, maybe we need this sense of purpose, maybe we need to redefine what success is. And it's great that we've got Krishna here, and I'll introduce him in a minute. But Matthew, would you mind saying a little bit, because obviously this is the school that we've worked with in Dubai with Matthew, I've known for a number of years, and really what he was trying to do with the moral education, with the IB curriculum, and what attracted to you about this idea of working with Emmanuel and bringing that wisdom in?
Sure. I mean, and I'm going to sort of enjoy saying, hello to everybody, and hopefully be able to meet up in real time as well at some stage. And let me also extend the the trust of friendship to anybody who would like, in passing, to stop by in Dubai and come and spend time with us in the school that I lead at the moment, which is a school of about 2,000 children and quite a large beast in its own way. And Anthony's been doing really very exciting work with us, and brought Krishna into that as well recently, looking just at the the model of territory mapping, but also backed onto that was work on the wheel, which is quite a complex arrangement of fundamental kind of human attributes in many ways, but there's a universality to it, which means that children find it, teenage children, we haven't gone into a primary age group, but that teenage children find it a very accessible model to be able to talk about themselves, talk about their environment, talk about others, and make meaning from. And thank you very much indeed, Anthony, for introducing that. It's work in progress, and you're meeting more and more staff and more students along the way. And we as a school are trying to tie it into quite an abstract structure that's given to us by the Ministry of Education in Dubai, which is to do with fostering moral education in the schools, and it works quite well as a support for that. It also, I think, a lot of the thinking echoes the very best principles of the IB diploma and theory of knowledge, which is looking at the epistemology of learning in many ways, and trying to understand that there's no fixed meaning, and that the opinions and the values and the ideas of others, which may be different to our own, can also be right. And yeah, I mean, I can only say very positive things about working with Anthony and with the structure from a school's point of view. I can also, I mean, we go back not as far as many of you have climbed far bigger mountains than I have together, but Anthony and I go back also through an experience with a very different school at a time when we were looking at the management of change, and Anthony used the mapping structure, which was pretty well developed then at that stage, but not as well developed as it is now, but used that in a 2-3 day exercise that we had together as a leadership team as a school was going through quite a significant transformation and growth and relocation onto a new campus. So, you know, from the stance of a humble schoolmaster, I'm a very strong advocate and support its development in our school, and welcome anybody to also, you know, reach out to me directly or reach out to me through Anthony, and very happy to keep this conversation going. Sadly, I've got to leave. I mean, because I've got another arranged meeting I've got to get to in about 40 minutes time at the other end of town. But I hope you have a really great discussion together. And as I say, I look forward to meeting in time to come.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Matthew. And it's brilliant working with the energy and the passion of all of the students. It really is fabulous. But I just thought what might be interesting, because what we're talking about is really trying to redefine what success and freedom really means. You know, successful life, what does it actually mean? And really to bring extraordinary people to talk to students about different perspectives of this. And it's a real privilege to have with us Krishna. I'd love to give just a little bit of a background, if I might. Krishna's from Nepal originally, and he then became a Gurkha, and he watched these strange people wandering up to climb mountains, and he thought, why on earth would I want to climb a mountain? And then he joined the Gurkhas, which is obviously incredibly difficult. From the Gurkhas, he was then invited to join the SAS and has been with the SAS for 18 years. And while he was there, he went on to climb an 8,000-meter mountain. Then he led a very, very successful trip to the summit of Everest. And more recently, he's climbed K2. And I just think these are the sort of people that we really want students to understand. What is success from different perspectives? So Krishna, would you mind talking a little bit about what you think you'd like to tell students about what is success? What is freedom? What does it mean to you from your village perspective, from the SAS, from the Gurkhas, and from being a mountain leader? Would you mind giving a little bit of background, which is what the students will be listening to? Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you, Anthony, and for everyone being in this wonderful package. I think to me, it's just going back to my own life and then looking back. And the most important thing is, in our life, we kind of focus on to the reactive and compulsive behavior. And when I look back my own culture, when I look, you know, like grown up being a monk and being a Hindu religions, grown up in a mountain, when I have compared no academic education, but however I managed to achieve my aim and maybe one of the extreme in terms of physically and mentally determined work on my level. I think the important thing is to how I overcome my emotional connection, and then how I overcome my physical and maybe conscious, you know, and during that part, conscious about the my destination and my desire, and how if situation don't fall the way I want it, and how I manage within my body, mind, and in the outside world. That is probably the reason I'm here, and that's probably the reason I kind of maybe succeed. So I think if we can learn and then have a education which can capture and identify the emotional and energy level earlier, and at the same time, if you can make a decision and conscious about a desire, dream, and destination, and if you can educate our new coming students in early stage of that management. For example, when I was in the Nepal young, and when I spent a couple of nights in just worshiping the mountain, worshiping the stone, worshiping the tree, and which by then I have no idea And then, but now I find out the reason, how can we capture our emotion and how can we capture our body and mind when you are suffer? Because in a one way is important being is without the nature, without a tree, we can't survive. So I think those are the things, if we can consciously and, educated, I think that would be a great outcome for us. And the one of the latest, just going through my own, I got a daughter now, she's 12, and we always have a problem, they spend the time on the phone and time on the computer all the time. It is very hard to find the situation to have a normal communication. And then I think from my own experience, then how can I overcome the situation and bringing to the nature? And every time she goes on the laptop or on the phone, then I kind of stand up and then try to hug her, create the situation and environment. How can I be more connected without, being negative, without being telling her? And then the only way is to involve ourselves with that situation and make a positive outcome, just hugging her, and she will stop looking for the at least phone for, 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And also that found to me, sometimes it takes time to create the environment. And so to me, it's again, the answer is to be a freedom and success is if we can educate at early stage of our life, how can we capture the emotional mind, and how can we consciously make a decision of the desire, a dream, or, financially and culturally and with at all level, if you can maintain and mitigate this problem early stage, and if you can educate it that way. And to be honest, that's probably the success in our life.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody like to ask a question? Paul, obviously he will be with you at the school for your students. Would that be an exciting message, do you think? Paul, do you want to say something, or some of your goals of that?
Yes. So we are super excited. If Krishna will be someone who'll be able to speak to our students. You did mean me when you said Paul. I'm aware there are other Pauls.
I did. I'm sorry, not Paul. sorry, Paul. Yeah.
Yes. So at my school, which is Wyndham College in Norfolk, we're looking to attach this program to our existing character and leadership program that we're setting up for some of our sixth form students, just to kind of broaden their horizons, get them thinking about the world beyond school and about life beyond school, and also to, I suppose, support them through what's been a very difficult few months, difficult year. So having that kind of caliber of speaker speaking to our students as part of that program and inspiring them to complete the tasks that are required of them, I think will be excellent, and we're really excited to be involved.
Fabulous. And it's really bringing that wisdom from different places and different. Does anybody else want to ask Krishna anything, or shall we continue on? Sonia, would that inspire your students?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at the moment, we are right at the beginning. We're just starting to develop a curriculum for our younger students. So we're talking kindergarten to sixth form. So we're looking at developing a curriculum that would enclose empathy, community, and leadership. I do like character and leadership, though. I'm just thinking maybe I'll add that into our acronym. But we're just drafting it at the moment. We're pulling in different ideas. So yes, I mean, speaking to people that have those sort of experiences is wonderful. At the moment, I think it's any input as we are in that phase of development is wonderful.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to say anything? Or I think, yes, please, Kathy.
Yeah, I just think it's a real challenge to keep, the physical, moral, social, emotional, spiritual and practical aspects of education, where to find the balance, is a huge challenge for any type of education at any age. And the older the people you're dealing with, the greater the variety of experiences and backgrounds you're dealing with. And that can be a huge challenge. And you need a really good support team to help you deliver what you want to.
Yeah. I would agree entirely. I think what I'd love to do is ready for Chris to talk a little bit about the maps and how he's been using it internally within his own ideas and his own life and where education is. And then I'd love for John Rolfe, who's been using this with his teachers and also with the students, to talk about and really the way that we've been using it. So that will be next. But I think, Chris, just 1 second, I will go straight into the maps. This is what we were talking about, as you're saying, is really this trust wheel, which we've created by asking the Maasai, really what is important. And I've been through it with Krishna as well. What is it around your life? And we're bringing it into schools to give students this idea of the balance of what do they have to do? What do they have to know? But more importantly, how do they then create the character that they actually need? But asking them to draw their maps, which I will show you more of. But I thought it'd be great, Chris, for you to talk about how we met and what happened next.
Yeah, let me chip it. So those of you that don't know me, Chris Jones, I lead CJ Learning. At this point, I've been involved in education and school leadership, and thank you, Matthew, for your contribution earlier. I resonate with much of what you said about leading school, and actually what's just been said, Kathy, about and Sonia, particularly your designing curriculum. My specialism is curriculum design. That's what we focus on in the state education sector. I lead an organisation called CJ Learning. We work with schools across the UK, particularly England. Now, I as an organisation lead, I'm involved in something called the CEO Growth Academy, which is where I met Anthony. Anthony came for a day that we were spending together, and he presented territory mapping. Now, what you see on the screen shared is the map that I drew during that session. Just briefly, it's a view at that time. Now, this was the 4th of March of this year. It was before pandemic had hit Europe. We knew of it going on in the Far East, but it hadn't come in any major sense into our world here in the UK. And I was very focused at the time on a challenging environment, the state sector education being kind of clouded by funding issues and the Department for Education putting pressure on, people pointing their fingers saying, I want this, I want that, I want the other, and people walking well-trodden tracks. And I drew the map to say, well, this is the environment, this is how it is, it's what it feels like, it's tough, it's difficult. But on the other side of the ravine was a kind of sense of understanding and wisdom. And I jokingly, because I'm old enough to remember, the magic number 42, the answer to everything. So on the other side of this ravine was this story. So that's what I was drawing. It was a tough environment, and it still is a tough environment. But little did we know that a short time after I drew this map, that's how it felt like, there was a change. And Anthony, if you press the
I will, but just before we do that, we literally all laughed in the audience that it would never happen in our lifetimes. We literally said, this will never happen in education. This will stay with us forever. We will never break through and give children hope and belief and everything else. So, cheers, Chris.
So this is the 28th of April, just literally less than 2 months later, and it seemed that the chains that were locking people down, Ofsted, performance measures, examinations, and all the rest of it, at that time, there was this breaking of those chains. And I saw in my map some people starting to think about walking over the ravine. And on the other side of the ravine were these new things, MS Teams and Google Classroom and Zoom, and all sorts of other resources that we've now, for the last 8 months, have become our daily life. I mean, particularly, I spend most of my day on Zoom. But what I've discovered, and certainly what I'd been talking about previously, was the sandpit of discovery. There were so many of these things, the opportunities available, but we were so used to the well-trodden tracks, the pressure from other people and other things. And so I saw this warmed by the fires of hope. There was possible change. I mean, I've been talking for the last 10 years as an independent provider, and then 25 years before that as a school leader, about the possibilities of change and doing things differently, and shaping curriculum in different ways, and exploring that with schools and academies and MATs and chains and groups of schools and diocesan boards and so on. Now, we've worked with quite a few since, and they're beginning to see now that it's not about Zoom and it's not about Teams, but it's about thinking differently. Now, what I see with territory mapping is the opportunity to open people's eyes and thinking to where do we want to go and how are we going to get there? What does that look like? Map it so that we can see it. Now, the trust wheel and all the other things, see, I think this works at a number of levels, and actually the people in this Zoom room illustrate that it's not just about educating children, it's about educating ourselves. It's about empowering ourselves to think, to explore, to evaluate, to measure where we are and what we're looking at. So it works for children, and there are some great examples. And that, you know, Paul, this is what we're going to work through with you, with the learners at Windham College, and others that are either watching this or part of this now. But it seems to work at various levels. I'm also concerned, particularly now, about the debt to our teaching staff. That the pressure that they're under, they're still, some of them standing around those posts being dragged back to particular norms, and the ability to explore some new ways forward are really powerful. So I see this working at a number of levels, and I know, you know, one, working with school leaders and with their teaching teams about mapping ways forward. And I know John's going to talk a little bit about that in a moment, about how he's been working with some teachers, and how this is a really creative and visionary way of moving forward, but also then how it's working with school children. But I know here also we've got examples of university, further ed and adult education, where it's a powerful tool for mapping forward. So Anthony, that's my story about how we got to this. It was 2 months of change, and then look what happened afterwards. It's you know, where we are now is because of that. So this is the opportunity to explore in a lot more depth what's available within this method. So thanks for the opportunity, Anthony. Now, just do you want to pick up and follow through?
I will do, but please, if anybody has any questions at any point, please do ask, because this is really, as we said at the beginning, this is really a discussion. But if I can just give people a little bit of a background of this, what I've been doing for 40 years is trying to bring the wisdom. I believe that the future is around us knowing who we are. And that's why it's about knowing your map, knowing your village, knowing your community. And it's really, as I say, for 40 years, this has not come from academic background. It's come from me being invited around the fires by the Maasai or other people. And really, when you ask the Maasai, who is the leader, all they say is, what is the problem you're trying to solve? And I think we are so keen always trying to find the answer. Maybe it's around, what do we need to solve? What do we need to do to help people? And more recently, I've been in Mongolia, and I've been joining a lot of the Mongolians on their nomadic migrations between winter and spring pastures. Just timeless feelings, but this glorious sense of evolving in our lives to do different things, and realizing the warmth of the communities we're in. And there you can see yourself, Sonia, with your bowl in hand on the left-hand side. But really taking people on these fabulous journeys so they can also feel that sense of warmth, but where the skills that people have are real and useful. and they know how to look after and adapt to that environment that they find themselves in. So a very brief background about myself. I was brought up, I'm 8th generation expatriate. I was brought up in Kenya. There I am with my father. When I asked him how I should educate my children, he simply said, make sure they play sports at which they can get seriously hurt. Beyond that, he didn't think much point in education. So basically, he sent me off to a ghastly place that taught effortless insincerity and arrogance without substance. Anyway, at the age of 22, I hopped on the Trans-Siberian Express to Japan, where I lived for 30 years. And there in Japan, I went on a camel safari for 21 days to Kenya. And this is when I first saw the Maasai come into our little community. And what I saw was absolute substance without arrogance. These people had a sense of presence. And I became fascinated. What is it they've got that we've lost? And that's why I decided to go to Papua New Guinea, because I thought there maybe I could find out what was this secret of what we'd lost. And they were still there wearing feathers and spears. So I asked, why do you have so many feathers? They said, well, a bigger man has many feathers. A bigger man can hand out his feathers. And leadership is about contribution, is about handing out those feathers. So I then said, what about the spear? He said, well, you have to earn it. You can't buy it. You can't sell it. You can't give it away. You must accept the responsibility. And I'm sure I could ask all of you, and you know people who've earned their spears, and you know people who've bought them. And it really is around how do we look after the community? And this is when I first got fascinated by territory. When I asked the Papua New Guinea ambassador back in Tokyo, what is the most important thing in his life? He simply said, it is my territory. Therefore, I know my duty. And I thought, wow, what is my territory? A couple of bars, a car I own. What is it that I know? And that's really been the fascination ever since. And then I started really exploring my own territory, whether it was taking camels through the deserts of Western China, climbing a 7,000-meter mountain also in Western China, or going across Papua New Guinea with 24 bottles of wine and no food. And Paul Hewitt, who's in the audience, is the fellow on the right. And this is taken by my wife. But, you know, it's around looking at possibilities and obviously going in search of some sort of danger. But I think it's really around learning the skills. And the skills are that you get to the top of mountains by sharing your dreams and ideas. So I opened the first outdoor team building company in Japan and then on the Great Wall of China. And what I love about China or the Great Wall is north of it are the nomads. And to the nomads, the more you have, the less you are. Because you've got to be able to contribute. You're judged on how you contribute to your community, how you earn your respect, how you look after yourself, and not by the baubles that you define yourself by. But what I saw is you could build teams quite easily and you could get people to say, hey, this is all great. But everybody I found in companies would say, where am I going? Who am I? What's important? And that's when I thought back to my time in Papua New Guinea or in Kenya. It's about earning your spear, and maybe success in life is learning how to be humble, how to inspire, how to create clarity in people. And that I found came from a map. And that has really been my work for the last 40 years, discovering that in Papua New Guinea or anywhere else, inside everybody, there is a map, whether it's from a company or it's almost impossible to tell the difference. That happens to be Thomson Reuters. And really it's the simplicity of knowing if they're cattle, we're looking after our cattle. Those are our assets. Where are the green pastures for our knowledge, for our wisdom? Are we fulfilling our potential to fatten up our abilities? Because so often in organizations in our own life, people say we're heading for paradise, but all the employees see is bullshit bridge. We're all on different islands. The question is, how in our lives do we actually bring everything together so we can share our goals, we can share our ideas? And this is why I'm so passionate about children learning this from the age of 12, to start working out what are the rivers that they want to cross. And even working with the Gates Foundation and with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and others, it was how could they work together to raise Africa? working with China? What is that goal in life we want? And if we've got it on a map, we can see it and remember it. So what I'd been doing is taking people to Africa to sit down with Emmanuel, bringing Emmanuel the Maasai to teach the wisdom of clarity, trust, and adaptability. And even with Matthew, this is starting when we started having Emmanuel brought into the schools. And then this is me looking at a computer with COVID back in March going, what on earth do I do? And then someone who from China said, well, look, maybe we can run a session. And this is the first map drawn during the COVID era. And he talked about fear and hope. And then I met someone who I'd met in a bar. This is the Beatles Avenue in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. This is Alex Skinner. And Alex said, why don't we try doing some mapping in America? I said, I don't know whether this stuff works over the web, but let's try. So this is the very first territory mapping session, talking about the migration of the animals. And I suddenly started to realize that people can draw their maps. It doesn't have to be face-to-face. People can draw them and then talk about, this is where I am. These are my fears. These are my hopes. This is what I want to do in my life. And I started to realize that actually in COVID and with this whole area of the shutdown, you can actually do more. And this is when Cisco said, let us try it. And I started to get hope that maybe there really was a future in getting people to look at the maps over the web, and they could start to talk about their fears, their hopes, and what they wanted to do. And even in China, this is someone in China talking about it. And here he is sitting on a train going at 300 kilometers an hour, talking about his map. So it suddenly made me have hope that maybe one could start doing things with mapping. And then I thought, wow, let's have World Territory Mapping Day. So on May the 14th, with Chris and others and Roddy, who's there, we had 190 people on 5 continents. We put them into small rooms and they all started drawing their maps and explaining about the rivers that they wanted to cross. And that's when we had students from Dubai talking about what it was like to be on that journey and what they found it. And there we are with International Territory Mapping Day. And this is also then when we did it for education. So gradually I thought, wow, maybe we could bring these lessons from Emmanuel. Maybe we do Zoom calls with Emmanuel from his village in Kenya. And this is when John Rolfe said, hey, why don't we do something together? John, would you like to take up the story from there, please?
Thank you, Anthony. Yes. So I'm speaking to you from St. Clair's in Oxford. We're also an international baccalaureate school, like the school in Dubai that you've been hearing about. And I attended the International Mapping Day that Anthony spoke about, and then invited Anthony to come and speak to our pre-IB or year 11, 15, 16-year-old students, and invite them to draw the vision that they had for their lives. And I think my territory is music, art, drama, and you can see here Anthony and Emmanuel Mankura in Kenya and me planning the day together. And Emmanuel, his family sang us a song. So his family shares certain songs which they all know, and like the maps, they express their shared values and their shared sense of purpose. So that was fascinating for us to think that you can tell a story, you can show a map, but how many of us could actually sing a shared song? So that brings in the music to me, the mapping and the storytelling all into one thing. Anthony, your next picture?
Absolutely, yeah.
So these are maps drawn with, I think, our pre-IB 15-year-old students. And, one thing I was keen to do was to be prepared to use colors and to make the maps really quite visually strong, so that when they photographed them or presented them on screen, they were really visible. So that's something we were conscious of. And this is one of our students here presenting her map. And it really told us a lot that we would never have discovered about these students through just sort of teaching them in the traditional way, but actually asking them to tell us, what is it that they carry with them, what is it that's meaningful to them, and will help them on the journey to what they want to achieve. And I know, Anthony, you're as impressed by the detail of some of these maps and just how much people are able to put down and connect together in these images.
Yeah, I was staggered. I mean, that is literally what someone was able to do in what, 20 minutes? It's extraordinary.
Yeah. And I think this resonates with the idea of leadership. We very much look to our pre-IB students going onto the IB program to understand that we're looking for them to be leaders within our school, to lead the people who join us at the beginning of our 2-year international baccalaureate program, and share with them a sense that they're not just there to receive knowledge, but they're there to help to drive what we're doing, and to for us to listen to them and to help them to achieve their goals, to empower them. And the teachers joined in with, this is a colleague of mine, teachers joined in with the students, and that was a wonderful sort of leveling thing. I think that teachers and students could both share the sense that they had a vision, a sense of journey that they were trying to go on, and a sense of the values or the things on the trust wheel that would help them in that journey. So yes, Emmanuel was involved in the day and talking to the students, and you can see everybody thoroughly enjoying listening to him and to his stories and his wisdom and his songs. So we did trust wheels with the students as well as maps. We had a whole day with them, and I can only tell you that the feedback from students, but also from parents of the students, was extremely positive.
And I think, yes, Krishna, would you like to say a little tiny bit about sort of clarity and trust, and why trust is so important in your communities, in the army and elsewhere, and why it's underpinning everything?
Absolutely. I think in our for our conscious mind and clarity, basically, if you say clarity, if you have no clarity and if you are confident, we are stupid to do anything, basically, in terms of work or aim or business or any personal level. So I think clarity is very important for in our life. Basically, in our life, nothing will happen as planned, as you wish to go through. So then, if you don't have a clear and clarity vision, and then it comes to confidence with it. So then we need to adopt the as we step, as we move, and that only come if we have a clear mission statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then this moved on to the afternoon, when we started to get the students to think about trust. If trust was at the center, what else went with it? Sorry, John, back to you.
Well, I think the maps are a really good way for students and teachers or anybody to express their clarity, the clarity of vision, to visualize it. I think the trust wheel then was a really good way to have people think about how they would work with others, because they realized that they weren't going to achieve their goals by themselves, that they would necessarily want to work with others, and what were going to be the values that underpinned the relationships that would help them on the journey in their map. So I think that's how that sort of fitted together.
And there are more around trust.
Yes, and again, as with the maps, these were things that people could then share. And for me, as an arts person, the fact that they could visualize them was very important. And it was up to them whether they placed the trust at the center or other things. So having worked with students and seen the success of the territory mapping with students, we then moved on to try this with teachers. And I run workshops for the International Baccalaureate organization. So these are all art teachers from as far apart as you know, the United States and China, so they're all on different time zones. And you know, by the end of the course, the 3-day workshop, we asked all the teachers to draw maps. I think we're going to see some of them in a second. And so teachers shared their maps and, you know, were visualizing the journey that they were trying to go on, or that they were trying to take their students on, which is what we're seeing here. The journey to becoming and helping people to become artists, or the journey that they were taking on trying to develop their practice or their vision for the arts within their schools. And these maps enable conversations for students to have conversations with their peers or with their teachers within their schools. And the maps with teachers allow the teachers to talk to their peers, but also to have very important conversations with colleagues and management within their schools. This is a wonderful map by a teacher in China, expressing her sort of daily journey of trying to bring hope and energy, creativity, passion to her students each day. And, you know, I think we were talking to teachers at various stages of their careers, either beginning or middle or later on in their career. And it really was incredibly empowering for these teachers, I think, who rediscovered, you know, what it was that they had brought them into teaching. Because I think that very often people can lose sight of that after a number of years working in particular institutions. So this particular map led to very, very important conversations, I think, within the school that probably wouldn't have happened without the map.
John, can I ask you that? So, I mean, what you're suggesting is that this helped with sort of career mapping and the idea of where am I now and where am I going and what's my future.
I think it brought clarity to that, Chris. Yes, it helped people to bring clarity to themselves. You know, I think, as you've mentioned, teachers very often feeling swamped by just what's hitting them and reacting. And this was a moment to pause and to create a vision, you know, of what they would like to achieve or how they thought things should be functioning. In this case, this is almost like a poster of how this arts teacher felt that, you know, art should be playing an extremely valuable role within the wider institution.
There was an interesting quote on one of the illustrations that you made that that art is the oxygen that breathes into other subjects. And
well, that's Alan Parker, yeah, as in The Wall, a wonderful quote. You know, and I think art, obviously I'm an arts person, but I think, you know, art can be the lifeblood of a community. Next one, Anthony. Yeah, this was fascinating. I don't think Anthony had seen this before. This is two people drew a map together. And I think that was a wonderful thing for people to have that clarity, a shared clarity of vision, that they were able to draw one map between the two of them.
And they were in Jordan. No, they weren't. They were in Oman.
Yes, and really sort of feeling they'd got a lot of things they were hoping to achieve within their community. And this was an absolutely fascinating map. You know, it's drawn in terms of chutes and ladders, and you can see the chute going down the COVID cash pit. And again, this was a map which, you know, this teacher took to speak with management at their school about, you know, where they thought things could go and how they hoped that they would go. Next one, Anthony. Yeah, so I think it was an extremely powerful experience. Now we have with us Agnieszka, who participated in this workshop. I'd like to invite her to say a few words.
Yeah. I haven't got her map up. I'm really sorry, but would you like to say something, Agnieszka, please?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello,
we can hear
you. Yes, nice to see you. So yes, that was the first time I heard about that idea of illustrating this vision with a map. So it was a challenge. I had a lot of fun doing the map. But as I'm thinking about it now, I think I could start with drawing a territory first, but instead I started of imagining how from my point of view, like I was the first person I draw on the map, and I think it should be the other way around. So then the clarity of the territory might be more clear. Maybe.
I haven't got it, unfortunately. I will try and find it in a minute when Giles is speaking.
Maybe I can share it with you.
Agnieszka, I think you make a very good point that the map is something that we should come back to, and then we can redraw it. You know, we should be drawing a new map.
Yeah, definitely. I would draw it differently today, even just a few weeks passed, right, after our workshop.
Yeah.
But when I take a look at it now, I think this is such a mess, and a lot of unimportant things are on my map. Were on my map.
Just one second.
Yeah, I wanted to share it with you too. Can I?
It's here. I've got it. I've got it.
Oh.
While you're finding it, there's a really interesting comment there, and certainly I experienced that in doing that. You saw the two maps that I drew. That the clarity that you find in doing it, not often, but certainly one time after another. That's an interesting point. Thank you. There's your map.
Yeah. So this is my map. And I started to draw with the figure I imagined what's important for me. So there's a big, there are eyes that by the way, I'm also visual art teacher. So maybe that's why vision was so important in my map. So some things I can see, some things I can receive. And that's how I perceive the world, I guess, by the eyes mostly. So, and then I started to think about like random things and try to draw it on the map. So that's why maybe for someone who's watching the map from the outside, it's not so clear what it's about.
Agnieszka, I think one of the things that was very interesting for me is that you have really two careers. You're involved in teaching art, and you're also an art restorer. And I think this was quite a challenge for you to put those two things into one map.
Yeah, maybe.
And I don't think it was something you'd never done before. You know, we did this quite quickly.
Maybe I didn't take my second career under consideration, just my life in general, like where I want to be and what's stopping me to go there. That's why I put myself, and those are my students, by the way. I put this present situation in some kind of bubble that's temporary, I guess, and floating around some ideas I have generally. And some obstacles or challenges, exciting challenges that might happen. And I want to make them more close to me.
And those are your arms around all the students, aren't they?
Yeah, that was the idea, that on one side, I would like to protect the younger generations from my struggles. And in the same time, I would like them to have this spin to be more brave or be more courageous about the world.
I think one of the things for me, Anthony, about doing this is that you know, normally we would meet teachers again after 2 years in another workshop, and having the map means we've got something to come back to see how the conversation has developed, or the professional development has developed over that 2-year period. So I think revisiting the maps, as Agnieszka has said, is really, really important. Anthony, can we? Yeah. Thank you so much, Agnieszka. Can we move on to the?
Where are you in the world at the moment, please?
Oh, still in Poland.
In Poland, okay, yes. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Can we come back to the maps?
We are. I'm just coming back to the maps. So please continue. There we go.
Thank you so much, Agnieszka. I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're hoping to do next, and we're having a conversation with Ben Schumacher, who's here, and I'd like to invite him to speak, because so far I've worked with students in my school, and we've worked with teachers through the International Baccalaureate program through continuing professional development. But we're beginning to have conversations with Ben Schumacher, who runs a really incredible project that I have worked on with him, and I'd just love to invite him to speak about where we are with that conversation. Ben, a little bit about what you do, if that's all right.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. I'm in Wisconsin, USA, And basically, I was very excited when John asked me if I'd like to have a conversation with this really interesting guy he knows named Anthony about territory mapping, because John and I have worked together for what, John, like 14 years?
I think so, yes.
14 years, on a very interesting art project that we call the Memory Project. And this involves many schools here in the United States, other schools in England and in other countries. But it's entirely focused on the arts and primarily upper level or secondary students who are very skilled at portraiture. And so these students who are in their classrooms creating artwork and portraits for grades, usually, we thought, you know, that's an underutilized resource. And if we could have those art students create portraits for children around the world as special gifts, that would really be fantastic and a great way to unite youth through the arts. So the basic idea of the Memory Project is that we connect with organizations around the world that are working with children who are facing or overcoming really significant challenges, many different kinds of challenges, violence, loss of families, extreme poverty, you name it. And then we get photos of their faces and we give them to these talented art students, like John's students, who then study their photos and make handmade portraits for them. And then we deliver the portraits to the children. So there's two main purposes of this. One is to give the child a special memory, which is why it's called the Memory Project, a special memory of their childhood that honors their unique identity and how they're growing and everything they're achieving despite all of the challenges they're facing. But the second purpose is to just make the world smaller and to facilitate meaningful connections between youth through art. So just actually, these photos are very fresh. I'll share my, I'm embarrassed to admit that this is the first time I've ever shared my screen on Zoom. I'm not in many Zoom calls, actually. So bear with me here. I just want to show a simple folder of images that I received this morning. Okay.
Glad to see. I put to the link to your project in the chat, Ben, and glad to see people responding to that. It is a wonderful project.
Okay. Well, this is, there we go. Okay. Okay, can you see this folder of images?
Yes.
So I just got these this morning. Was so excited to see them because, you know, as you might imagine, the pandemic has really made our efforts more difficult to move artwork around the world. But these images just came in to me this morning from, these are all children at a home for kids who have been disconnected from their families. All of these kids at some point in their lives were removed from their families or lost their parents, and they're growing up in a home together. This is in Central Asia. So they're holding the portraits that were created for them by talented art students in, you know, the US, England, other countries around the world. So, you know, you can see, oh, actually, this was very cool because this is the first time I've ever seen this, because I just shipped a box of these portraits to this location. And this was their way of introducing them to the kids. They went and hung them on a tree, many trees in their central courtyard. And then the kids came and found their portraits. And here you can see them all enjoying them. So the idea that John had, and about which we connected with Anthony, hold on here, how do I get my, just want to stop share. Okay, stop share. Okay, there we go. So the idea that John had was that, you know, maybe the kids who receive the portraits could do territory maps. And I love that idea immediately, because for so many years I've been struggling to find something meaningful that the kids who receive the portraits could create to share with the art students. We've invited kids who receive portraits to, do a simple drawing of their own to send back to the art students, but it's usually so logistically challenging, and it's been somewhat meaningful. We've had somewhat good results with that, but it hasn't been a home run. But I was very interested in this idea of inviting the kids to do territory maps for many different reasons, for everything that you've talked about so far, Anthony. So that's where we're at, and we're pursuing.
It's really exciting. I mean, in Jordan, Syria, and South Sudan, and all of these wonderful places, and also getting their parents to try to draw maps as well and see the communities and see what their villages and their culture looks like. So no, really, really, really exciting. So
and I think what's involved is quite basic. So as long as you can have paper and pencils or pens, we're not talking about oils or canvas or brushes or anything like that. So it's really possible to create something that can be shared, that could be very meaningful. But Agnieszka and Ben, thank you so much for making my little segment much more interesting than it would have been otherwise. Thank you both.
Thank you. Absolutely fabulous. But I think, with all the groups of people here, I think there's so much that we can really do together. I think that's the joy of it. Chris, that's your vision, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this, as I said at the beginning, this period has opened the door to a different way of connection. I was just looking and thinking, my years in school, Ben, that's such a refreshing way ahead for using something like art and connecting. I want to ask questions like, was there opportunity for the youngsters to talk to each other as you develop that? So they invested in another child, that chance of making that connection. I think that's really the opportunity and the hope out of a project like this that can step us forward. But definitely, the opportunity to do this exercise in terms of approaching our thinking differently is such a positive, and I really see some strengths, and really commend to you the process, not only using it with children with each other, learners with each other, adults with each other, teachers with each other. There are some ideas coming out through the chat. I mean, someone, Anthony has just suggested, could it be used with youth offenders and children being excluded from school? We've had conversations about children that are homeschooled and the opportunities that this might bring to open the door to some thinking about homeschooling. But there's two other possibilities there. What do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've done mapping with school children in Dulwich, Greenwich, moving from one deprived school to another. And they all sort of drew Tesco as a center of the world and their sister's bedroom as a place of extreme danger. But it was just an extraordinary way for them to actually be able to talk to each other and talk about the fear of moving into the new school. And even the teachers drew the same maps. And I'm just talking to someone now in Canada who's 87 years old. He wants to bring mapping in to help people become elders as they move through, look at their purpose. So it's just got such a vast, wide range. And I think this is really what is so exciting at every age. And this is why it's really exciting having Giles here, who has been, we only met, 9 months ago, and we've done so much together. So Giles, would you mind just talking a little bit about some of your ways that we've been working together, please? Giles is at Shenandoah University. So, yeah.
Well, so a bit of background. First of all, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate the opportunity to, I'm not sure what I can add to this conversation, but I'll try and make some points that might be useful. So Anthony and I were introduced by Alex Skinner, who you saw earlier. I'm very grateful for him making the introduction. I'm not sure where he is in the world now, but so since then we've been working and applying territory mapping in my MBA classes over the course of the summer, and now in this current term that's just finished up, we've been using it extensively, primarily in two ways. One is with the students' own career plans. So all of my interns are required now to produce 2 maps, one at the beginning of the term and one at the end of the term. So in a sort of personal career capacity. And then secondly, with live clients. So we've worked with firms such as a local regional airport, we've done mapping projects for a company that makes a very successful line of hot sauces from around the world. That's Brandon Clark, and several others. And also the students have done maps for Anthony's projects themselves this term. So one of the case studies that we looked at was, you can see in the picture, Stephen Brown, who's a very accomplished British entrepreneur, as chairman of a soccer club in Luton Town. And he brought so much knowledge and wisdom, just having applied the mapping process to build several very successful companies. The one on the map here you can see is a healthy snack company that he built from nothing to basically beating all of the other incumbents in the marketplace. And that was really a fascinating case. This one here is, this is Stephen's personal career map, I believe.
With his
Just
background plans, yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to, I know that you had my map further back. Maybe you can go back to that at some point. But one thing I wanted to say, because I also picked up on the same quote that John we'd seen on one of the slides from Alan Parker about art being the oxygen that we need to live and breathe in, and to make everything else come alive. And I think in a way that in many organizations suffer from what you might call an ecology eutrophication. And eutrophication is a process where you have excessive nutrients, for example, which are basically from pesticides going on farmers' fields and crops, running into rivers, reaching its way to the ocean, that leads to these algal blooms that then shuts down the ecosystem because there's a lack of oxygen. And in a way, I see territory mapping as a way of infusing the organization with oxygen, just by giving people the opportunity to breathe, by allowing them to express themselves, to state what's important to them. And I think, just to build on some of the earlier comments, once people have an opportunity to express themselves and the issues which are important to them, and as Anthony says, you can't really put anything on a map that's not important to you, then it begins a discussion, and you start to surface these assumptions about who you are and what you're doing in the organization, and indeed what is the purpose of the organization. Probably long overdue discussions which need are desperately overdue. Anyway, coming back to my own map, this here is just in brief. In the center on the left, you can see DK, and I see that as like a well of dynamic knowledge, in the sense that we have to have constantly evolving knowledge that we're disseminating and also learning from students as a two-way street. Around that, we have the students each with their own maps, built on a foundation of knowledge and principles. And above the well is the university, and this dark cloud is COVID. And the way I sort of visualize my role in the university is to, you can see the word journeys, is to take students on these journeys through this valley of death, which is COVID-19, and onto the other side. And the P's in circles here are partnerships. So we're trying to connect them with various organizations, and working also on projects with live clients, and helping them really to gain the skills and the confidence and the experience to make that journey. So I should probably leave it there. The only thing I would add is that down on the right-hand side, on the bottom right, are just the communities that are important to us. You know, the core communities, our family, the people we work with, held by the bonds of love, and where we draw that great inspiration from the various communities that we are born into, but then also the ones that we join, such as the global territory mapping community. So I think I better leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charles.
Yeah.
And just to flick through, we're doing it sort of tutelage. We're putting together master classes of different people who've used it in different ways, so people can start to see how they can use it in these different ways. And these are obviously some of the MBA students who've created their own plans in incredible detail. And as you were saying, Giles, you just get everyone to use it, don't you? They've got to create this is their plans.
Yeah. So some of these are personal career maps, like the one you can see on the slide here. But then others are produced by a team of students who are working for an external client. So the one that you can see on the slide there, Sila Health, is Africa's largest or fastest growing telemedicine platform. Basically in Africa, there's one physician for every 5,000 people. So he's using, this is an entrepreneur who's originally from Nigeria, but based in Amsterdam. And they're using the extensive network of mobile devices in Africa and machine learning and algorithms to help people to get medical care without physically seeing a physician. It's really quite an extraordinary project. And the students here have basically mapped different pathways for Sila Health to obtain funding, either through partnerships with pharmaceutical companies or with NGOs or with governments or by other means. And it was, I think Baguzi Nyoni, the CEO, really derived a lot of benefit from this. It helped him to clarify his own thinking in terms of his strategic options and brought new information into the mix, which he hadn't considered before.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very, very much. And thank you for all that we've been doing. And this is, you're talking about the airport. There we are. This is one of the first mixed ones. But really, for me, the most important thing is how do we make sure what we're doing is actually part of the curriculum. So just very briefly, using this wheel that we've created, the trust wheel with Emmanuel and also with Krishna talking about it. This is how it fits into the IB curriculum. This is how it fits into the moral education curriculum around the character, the morality of everything. So this is the Nord Anglia program. Who am I? What are my values? What do I want to do? What matters to me? And all around, as I say, the focus of the character and morality. What is it that they want? And then these are the pillars of what they want to create. So this program is ready to get students to reflect on it themselves, to think about their journey to success and freedom, the inspiration to be mentally equipped so they can shape their own destiny and define success. And this is what we want to then be able to do. And it's designed by the students. So these are some of the young students, some of you may have listened to before, but from the age of 12 to 15, talking to Rebecca Stevens, the first British woman to climb Everest, to Krishna, who you've met, and to Christo Brand, Nelson Mandela's prison guard. And there's Emmanuel and other people helping them think about that journey that they're on, and bringing trust to the classroom and getting them to think about what is their life, and really, really, really focusing on the student to realize that there are no right or wrongs. And these are what's defined by Forbes as being the most important skills. How do we bring that out so they can talk about their quest in life and start to treat them like real adults? And this is a map that was drawn by a session we ran the other day to become a politician. But this is my map, the mountains represent. And start having every child with their map that's then updated each term. And then with Emmanuel obviously talking about trust and other people, but just really starting to take things back to teach students and children of the sort of fun and the adventure of life. So that is what we'd love to work with people on in partnership and in hope and what we can do. Paul, Paul Nightingale, does this seem exciting for you?
Absolutely. It's just what we're trying to do here at Wymondham College, and try and provide an experience that sort of doesn't really fit as part of a standard curriculum. I've been busy making lots of notes, and I'm feeling extremely excited to share this with colleagues and our students. It's really, really wonderful. Brilliant.
Valerie, do you have anything? Because obviously you've been involved in education in Scotland for a very, very long time. So.
Yes, this is making my heart sing, Anthony, again, for a number of reasons. One is because personally I worked on a program where the student was the subject, they were the topic, and they were the expert, and my role was to help them to get to know themselves better That was before I met Anthony, and I can just see how that could work really well for young people. But as well as that, so I'm the lead for leadership and governance at the College Development Network in Scotland. So I look to bring professional development programs. I pull them together and bring in experts to deliver professional development for senior college leaders. And in the new year, Anthony and Emmanuel are going to be facilitating some workshops for us. So in education, you know, it came out earlier that teachers have been involved as well as students in creating these maps. But what Anthony will be doing with us is to get leaders, college leaders, to start creating these maps and really sensing into the territory and doing the trust wheel as well. So it's a, you know, it isn't just for, it's for all learners. It's for us to learn together. So I'm very excited about that.
Thank you. That's a lovely sharing. I think David Weber, the former Fuji climber, are you excited about how we can bring this into your communications programs? We can't hear you.
Sorry, guys. I was just joking. I was saying my mind was at the same altitude it was at with when I was on Fuji with you. Very, very quickly, 2 comments. Well, 3. 1, yes, the answer to your question is I'm very excited about some possibilities here. I teach communication studies. My specialty area is what I call applied organizational communication. So it's not so much organizational communication theory, but it's more how do you take that theory and make it versatile, applicable, malleable, so that it really works in the real world. My background is the real world. I haven't been an ivory tower intellectual academic for, you know, my life. This is a new thing. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, but before that I was in another 20 years in the real world. So yeah, the short answer is I'm very excited. Point number 2, I'm thinking about all the ways that possibly I could develop some partnerships with other professors and other departments to make this a little bit more, not just communication studies, but kind of hybrid across a couple of disciplines, in the same way that the whole territory itself is a hybrid of first world techniques, ancient tools, you know, village elders, as well as 21st century consultants. I really like that hybridity and the cross-fertilization. And point number 3 is more a question. My students tend to shy away from self-reflection, especially self-reflection that is triggered by activities or philosophies that they think of as being squishy or politically correct, or really causing them to have to be vulnerable. And so my question, which we may not be able to answer right now or even today, my question is, how do I break through that? I've tried in several ways over the 20 years I've been working at my university, and it's not always successful. It's successful with, you know, a few students to sort of get this, but in general, I have by now sort of pulled away from, you know, kind of this sort of, let's call it right brain, alternative thinking consciousness.
Well, yeah, I think that's a challenge, but I think Giles can answer that. And I think it would also be great if he can talk about how we're working with faculty at the University of Virginia on a project with an interesting professor there called Geeta Patel. But I think you've managed to find them fairly enthusiastic for all the sessions, haven't you, surprisingly, Giles?
I think, thanks for putting me on the spot there. I'm just kidding. No, but I think in answer to your question, David, rather than have them start with their own experience, have them do the mapping for someone else,
Oh.
another organization or another department or even another team or group, so that they are observing the process in action, and they can observe other people going through the process and how they're benefiting the various struggles, and then have a period of time where you can collectively reflect on that process. And I think at that point, it serves as a, rather than throwing them straight in the deep end, you could start in the shallow end there and just get used to some of the techniques and the ins and outs of this, with some infusions of Anthony Willoughby along the way, should do the trick.
I think that's a great possibility. I can see that being very applicable.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now all we have to do is arrange for the infusion.
Oh, we get that. Don't worry about it. Willoughby's happy to be infused.
But just be careful that you don't get the overdose. That's the only danger you have.
Yeah, you'll find yourself back up Mount Fuji again.
I should be so lucky.
Great. So do we have any questions or any comments anybody would like to ask or say anything, or if they've got any thoughts? Yeah.
I just think that it's interesting how things change over time. You can plan things for one instance, then all your resources change, all your people change, and what seems right in one circumstance is not right in another. So I think the idea of reviewing your mapping regularly is really important.
And that's what we hope. As I say, we really hope students will have a map each term. They will update it. They'll update their philosophy. They'll update their 3 words, and they'll start using it as almost their CV.
And what you're talking about, Anthony, is becoming almost a visual diary rather than that sense of journaling. The ability to draw it and map it. Thanks, Kathy, for that.
Yeah.
Was there somebody else trying to contribute? Just step forward.
Yeah, it's Ellie. So yeah, I'm a former police officer from the UK. I'm currently living in Kenya, and closely associated. My husband is from the Samburu tribe, so the sister tribe of the Maasai. I actually put the comment in there about have we considered using this for youth offenders and particularly young people in displaced communities. But I also, we work with groups of young girls, adolescent girls, where sort of tradition and culture and social norms really strongly define sort of life for them. And one thing that I really want to sort of share with sort of teachers here is that for many of these girls, they don't have the opportunity of being creative. So, you know, even that there is no syllabus within the curriculum of art and design and creativity. They don't have the tools to draw, and probably it's only through sort of traditions such as sort of beadwork where there's any sense of creativity at all. So this particular approach, this activity, and I've chatted with Anthony about this, for me provides another opportunity to really sort of develop these young people. And also to recognise that so many of them, it's very difficult to talk about these things. And so drawing potentially gives them that opportunity of saying so much more through this sort of this image.
Ellie, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lost your sound.
Yeah. Now, Ellie would absolutely love to do that. And when you're not in Kenya, you're in Somalia. So that is obviously another interesting territory that we would love to sit down with some people there and see how they see their territory. So please, can we continue the conversation? I'm sorry I haven't really been following up as much. But I think if we can talk more and some of the other schools we're working with, I think we could have some fabulous conversations.
Anthony, can I chip in here?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, you know, I always value your experience with territory mapping. You're very careful about having people focus, I think, on sort of very active and external kind of goals. And I think that works very well with Giles and the sort of business context. I think in my area with the arts, we do get into these more personal things. And, you know, I think it's important to have people around, pastoral support, you know, if things come up. You know, so I think the question that Ellie's asking, the territory mapping can work extremely well. You don't need sophisticated art materials. Everyone can draw a map. And then if things do emerge, it would be wonderful if there's some kind of support around for people to be able to follow up. But I think, you know, just listening to Giles as well there about the oxygen, you know, that the map gives to organizations and to individuals. I think for people who have lost a sense of hope, your mapping, you know, helps people to see that there is something else. There is another side to the river. There is somewhere that everybody can be looking, which is purposeful and developmental.
Thank you.
John, can I follow that through? I mean, you're absolutely right. And certainly in mainstream education, you know, it's important that, you know, I mean, if anybody that's walked around a school in the UK or anywhere in Europe or the States, you've gone to an art department, you will see some amazing pieces of art that would have been the expression of a child's response to a question. But certainly visualization techniques have been used widely in terms of that methodology. And you know, as you say, it's no need for fancy equipment. It's you know, a pen and a piece of paper. And certainly what we're talking about here, certainly using this within the sort of nursery to 19 kind of age range, it has application as much as it does, as we've just heard this afternoon, in the you know, older education systems. I'm interested to see how the territory mapping, one, it faces our well-being and our journeys and our plans for the future, but also on a more micro level in terms of planning, you know, so, you know, working out a plan for a specific piece of work. It's a discipline that can work at that micro level as much as it can at the macro level. It's a discipline, I you know, joked a moment ago and saying it's almost a replacement for a diary or a plan. But we've seen lots of other methodologies that are around this sort of mapping technology, or not technology, but that methodology. But I think it's got applications in a much broader sense, that where we start can then be taken on. Certainly as educators, it has application. I think that's probably, Anthony, why we see so many people here interested in getting engaged in it, because it has multiple levels of application.
Yeah, and I think that's the fun of it. And I think COVID has actually sort of generated interest, because structure, stability, security, certainty, and everything on the other side of the bridge is pretty much gone. And people have got to start relying on themselves, having new ideas. And I think this is what we can all create. And it's people drawing the things about the most important person in the world, which is themselves. So,
Anthony, Sonia was going to say something there. Can I just draw her in?
Sonia?
Thank you, Chris. No, I just wanted to pick up on something you said, Chris, that it does have different objectives as well. And I think that it's not to forget that territory mapping is not just and only about the person within that territory and just about the sense of their journey or the sense of their achievement or their empowering just them. It's also about the territory, and it means that it's also about the community. And that, I picked that up from also what Anthony was saying and what John was saying before. I think what's interesting, interesting for us, we're a school in Zurich, and the main language of our school is German, but we're teaching also the whole curriculum in English and in French at the same time. What's important for us is that territory mapping can bring us, and as well we're trying to develop this curriculum, is also encompassing the empathy and leading towards leadership. But to be able to be a good leader, you need to understand your territory as in understanding the other people around you, not just empowering yourself and understanding your own journey, but also encompassing the journey of others. And we're noticing that our children at the age of 12, when they exit our school, we're preparing them for the secondary system in Zurich, is they're streamed, and there are some very difficult exams that they have to take at the age of 12. And the whole idea from 4th grade to 6th grade is that children are focusing only on themselves. They're focusing on the competitivity, they're focusing on their own achievement only. They're put under a lot of pressure by their parents about achieving often the parents' goals, not their own. And we notice that the children completely forget and lack that sense of community, and it becomes more and more difficult in the end of the primary year. So the work that you're doing in terms of curriculum at the IB level with the theory of knowledge and the whole territory mapping is giving them and empowering them to become the leaders. However, we can't even start that, or they've already been so molded into a self focus and completely wrapped around them, their own achievement, that for me, it's important that we start even earlier to teach these children what their territory is and what their role within that territory is, but encompassing everybody else.
And I think that's,
Sonia,
yeah. Yes.
Sorry, I was going to say, Sonia, I think you're absolutely right, and I represented it in the sense of how it's been used, but I think actually some of the examples we've seen this afternoon of how it's used in an organizational sense, but exactly as you say, developing empathy and social awareness and my impact on the environment and understanding that so important and so possible within the mechanism. Anthony, go on.
No, I just want to say really thank you. The one thing I did in Kenya, which is quite fun, I actually got kids in a school to draw their maps. I turned up with my kids and they just sort of gave them pens and they could all start drawing things. But what the local African kids drew was what they were responsible for, like their cattle and their world and their crops, etc. Whereas what my children drew were what they owned, their Game Boys and their other things. And I think it's again about getting this sort of conversation and community going that is just so essential. And where are other people on our maps and bringing that. But really, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Chris and Krishna. Thank you for your kind words. And really what we want to bring is this sense of honor and humor and inspiration to the world.
Anthony, thank you. And we're going to have to conclude in a moment. Our time is up. But just say thank you for everyone that's joined us and contributions that you've made. If you want to keep in contact with us, you've got contact details just here above me. Please just come back to us if you'd like to pursue the conversation between Anthony and the work that he's doing with you and what we can facilitate through CJ Learning. Please do keep in touch, and if you know where this, or you see where this could be used within your education environment at whatever level that might be, please do get in touch and let's see what we can create and see what territories we can start mapping and moving you into. Thanks very much for being here. We really appreciate it. Anthony, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. It's absolutely fabulous seeing people from all over the world. Julian, thank you very much. And Roddy, thank you. And Fritz, thanks for being with us always and supporting. And Ben, thank you so much to everybody. Really, really, really fabulous. And for showing your maps. Thank you. And thank you, John and Giles. Thank you so much. Cheers. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll conclude there. Thanks a lot.